have now the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, that we penetrate the cabinets.
I also want to reiterate how deeply sorry Canada is for the situation this put President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation in. It is extremely troubling to think that this egregious error is being politicized by Russia and its supporters to provide false propaganda about what Ukraine is fighting for.
Why does this government treat Alberta like a fart in the room that nobody wants to talk about or acknowledge?
I heard her say a word that I know is distinctly unparliamentary, and I think she may want to withdraw it. The word was F-A-R-T.
I mean, we love your Mr. Trudeau. I mean, his family's always been such big fans of our flag.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4 of the Maple Files. I'm your host Snow Himbo, and this is my my co-host Yeti Jesus.
Welcome aboard, everyone. Gonna be a fun time tonight.
Oh yeah. So this is gonna be a big episode because we're covering Canada's involvement with the World Economic Forum. So the reason I wanted to cover this, first and foremost, is because I'm personally, as someone who identifies as a Marxist, very frustrated with the discourse around the World Economic Forum in general and other very big top-down consolidations of bourgeois power. Because I feel like almost all of this discourse is permitted by predominantly reactionary political factions. You got the conservatives who never shut up about this. As far as Canada is concerned, the only person really speaking out about it is Milhouse there, or Pierre Poilievre, if we will.
I'm never going to be able to not see that now.
I'm just gonna say Milhouse until I die now. I'm sorry, Pierre. It's over. It's never been more over, actually. And I feel like it's really we're at a weird place with specifically the World Economic Forum when it comes to like anything like to the left of conservatives, really. Because I'll be honest. I have spoken up in great length about the World Economic Forum, and I've lost a lot of followers. I've got blocked by a lot of people, and I've had a lot of even like far left anarchist communist accounts claim that it's like some giant conspiracy theory. Well, we're going to blow that out of the water tonight, but we're also going to cover Canada's involvement with the World Economic Forum. And I'm also just going to kind of break down why you should care about this. Why you should care as someone, I don't know, on the left, why you should care as anyone who's working class, really. Because at the end of the day, we shouldn't be, this is my frustration with the political discourse in the West in general. It feels like there's topics you're allowed to be critical of if you're in this camp, and there's topics you're allowed to be critical of if you're in this camp. Like on the right, it's completely okay to be anti-war if the war is in the context of Russia versus Ukraine. That's perfectly okay. But go against Israel, you'll get canceled. Look at it. Look at any conservative person who speaks out and doesn't kiss the Zionist ring.
Well, it's funny that they're like, it's anti-Semitic. It's like there's plenty of Jewish people that are vehemently opposed to what Israel's doing. So it's not anything. It's a country of Israel, which I always make that distinction with people. I know you do too, but just
it's
also,
like
no. Sorry, I have to answer a question. No, this is not a Yeti tumbler because I'm not paying that kind of money. I bought this for $5, and it's amazing.
A Yeti tumbler.
I'm going to put the original Yeti on in a sticker.
Yeah. So kind of the point here is I want to open up more discussion about large consolidations of the capitalist power structure within the discourse. And I think we need to start talking more about the World Economic Forum and other, other organizations in general, because I feel like this is a blind spot. And, I kind of get why. We'll get into that a little further. But my personal theory, if you will, and this is just using analysis, the reason why these certain topics, whether it's the World Economic Forum or, calling out certain issues that otherwise would be verboten for certain factions to call out, I feel like the reason that conservatives are kind of given a free pass to speak out about a lot of this stuff is you're not just, you can't just talk about a problem, right? You got to talk about a solution. And with conservatives, they can complain about the World Economic Forum all day long, but they're not going to offer a solution to it. Their solution, if you will, is smaller government. Well, the World Economic Forum isn't just involved with governments. It's a coalition of, I'm not kidding, every corporation. It's a coalition of every billionaire. So if your solution is smaller government, club. It is literally the billionaire club. So if your solution is small government, that's you have no threat to power. And that's the thing. Conservatives will never have any threat to power. They're never going to threaten power, because in order to threaten power, you have to threaten capital. You can't defend it.
And they only think in terms of money.
Yep. And oh my God, the stuff with Elon Musk and all of, like, the billionaire worship. It's like, y'all, they're not going to actually get the picture here, because, to them, billionaires are people to look up to.
Yeah, they believe they're brainwashing, and the left will believe they're brainwashing every time. And and that's the issue, is there's people stuck in the middle, and it's like, well, maybe we should kind of start to have some discussions on some things. But it's like, anytime anything gets talked about, in 2016 it started with the Nazi crap, seeing everything was a Nazi. All they were doing was shutting down any type of discourse. And then, of course, conservatives get offended because they're getting called out for acting like Nazis. And a lot of them would probably side with them if push came to shove, because they're so concentrated on race than more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got people on my Facebook constantly like, what about you owe so much to the white race? And I'm like, no, we don't. We owe murder to the white race.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, this whole scam doesn't work without heaps and generations of propaganda to make, and I don't even think it's necessarily, I might get canceled for this, I don't care. I don't think it's even necessarily the fact that, the fact that the empire is white. I think they happen to be white, and so they have to create a narrative to preserve their dominance. That's kind of just how the chips fell. But regardless,
and people eat it up because they don't want to think that they're backing evil, so they're just going to be like, okay, yeah, that seems reasonable that we did that, and they'll justify history no matter what, as long as it ends up with them looking good.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll talk about the propaganda in other countries, and it's like, well, you do realize it happens here too. So it's not the government, it's the corporations, which are the ones that are getting away with everything because of the government. They're the ones funding the government.
They're also the ones serving the government. That'll be a good episode for the future. However, I digress. We're going to get started. I'm going to start with, just for anyone who's uninformed, a little, just kind of a TLDR on what this whole World Economic Forum thing's about. And I'm going just to their source. This is the beauty of discussing this topic, despite people claiming it's a conspiracy. You can just get the info right from them. They'll just give it to you. YouTube will not silence it. They'll just be like, here you go. Here's everything.
That's Miss Yeti's favorite thing to point out. Like,
there's a lot of really...
Sorry?
Miss Yeti's favorite thing to point out is, like, they wrote a book. It says it in the book. Yeah.
Exactly. They literally did write. We'll get to that. They wrote multiple. They show their hand in all this, which will be an interesting topic for a little bit later. But let's.
Really interesting big questions that I think we have to face in the world. Helping answer some of those big questions, providing a platform for others to answer those big questions. This is now an open space for a lot of our constituents to truly drive forward their own actions.
I'm passionate about serving a group of alternative thinkers who have not only dreamt up great ideas about how the world can be more fair, more inclusive, more just, more sustainable, but are actually proving it's possible.
Damen und Herren, herzlich willkommen hier in Davos.
If you go back 50 years to the time when the forum was conceived, the whole idea was to make the multi-stakeholder concept come alive.
The world has become so interdependent that entrepreneurs everywhere in the world depend each on another.
If you look at the history of the forum, it's really been defining systems thinking.
For example, the Gavi Vaccine Alliance. It took bringing all these great minds with resources together to say, what can we do about this?
Today we're announcing that we'll spend over $10 billion over this next decade on vaccines.
Trust really gives us our credibility. It's really the essential piece to ensuring that we can continue to do the work that we do.
The forum managed to convince Mandela and de Klerk to try to reintegrate South Africa post-apartheid.
It has been my great privilege to fight a struggle for freedom that the world adopted.
An ability of the forum to have good convening power, to bring all relevant actors to the table, and to be able to do it in a way that can impact entire countries or entire domestic systems.
Lassen Sie uns in diesem Geiste gemeinsam für eine gerechte und dauerhafte Friedensordnung für ganz Europa arbeiten.
Our job is to get people around the table to construct and create conversations that aren't being had.
Why wouldn't we have a conversation about how we can reorient trade rules? Because that would have quite a powerful impact on the level of emissions and use of planetary resources.
We must learn to look at the planet, not as just a spacecraft on which we are passengers. We must see the planet as what it really is, a living being.
What climate change has done, it's monumental around the world. People moving from where their families have lived for centuries because they can no longer afford to feed themselves.
Putting people in faraway places and pretending that they don't exist, that is not ethical, it's not sustainable, and it's not conducive for human growth.
There's a much more concentrated effort to make sure that we're bringing in the voices of the next generation of business leaders, societal leaders, government leaders. We need to not underestimate the power that this youth has.
Private sector and businesses, industry overall has a huge role to play.
It's not just the business itself, it's also related to the society, how we can create a better world in the future.
We are working together with companies to think about AI and ethics, but also to recognize what human-centered design really means.
We have the Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution to discuss technology governance. We always put humanity and human in center.
And that's where the forum is at its best. It's as a way to shine a spotlight of where the world community could be headed.
We have the incredible potential of the information technologies, of the ways of communicating. We're only at the beginning of recognizing how far that is going to change our lives.
Each one of the Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies has that potential to create a society that's more positive, that's more sustainable, that's more inclusive.
If we can accelerate the formulation of a solution for a rare disease or climate or access to healthcare by a single day, it means a lot to a big chunk of the world population.
लाइट आ गया, कैसा लग रहा है? बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है और अपने काम करने को बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है.
This is about shaping the trajectory of our planet, being that credible, neutral platform that is trusted to bring these stakeholders together and provide them guidance that they're willing to implement.
Valuing equally that lots of different people might have a contribution to give. Because it often is some of those sort of rare ideas that are coming from an unexpected place that happen to be the game changers.
It always sounds so pretty when they talk about it. Which
I know.
Which obviously is part of the plan, right? Like that's not a mistake.
Well, it sounds so pretty, but I'm not gonna lie. There is like an undertone of, there's an undertone there where it gets, you're just like, something's a little weird. This is a little too much like every dystopian like movie I've seen.
Kind of like malfeasance underneath or something like that.
Yeah, a little bit. But
get my thesaurus out.
That's kind of their it's kind of TLDR of the World Economic Forum. They're we'll get into this later, but for the cliff notes, they are a giant coalition of corporations and many government officials who claim to be working together for the greater good. And if you're wondering, is there another word for governments and corporations working together? Boy, do I have news for you.
Pick me! Teacher! Over here!
Yeti, what's the word?
Fascism.
Correct. So it looks really pretty. And I'm not saying that's 100% definitively where they're going to go. But the most widely understood definition of the word fascism by Benito Mussolini himself, who I think Joe Rogan's descended from. I'm not sure. Not actually. They just look they just look similar. That's the whole joke. I'm not making a wild claim. I don't think that even makes sense. Yeah, the most widely understood definition of the word is corporations and governments working together. So everybody make up their own minds. We're just going to give you all the information and the material and have a bit of a discussion on it. But I digress. That's the meat and potatoes of what's going on there. And so from there, we have our creepy Dr. Evil sort of leader. Because, of course, they have a creepy Dr. Evil looking sort of leader. Klaus Schwab. And if this should raise some red flags, probably should. But for the record, Klaus Schwab was really good friends with this man by the name of, what's his name again? Henry Kissinger.
The butcher of Uganda?
Yep.
I mean, he butchered a lot of places, so.
He's second only to the Death Walrus, I believe.
I like Anthony Bourdain's comment on him. Go to Cambodia and you'll never want to stop punching that guy.
Yep. So they were good. They were good pals. Y'all can look that up. Just type in Klaus Schwab, Wikipedia, go look it up. I encourage everybody, everything we're talking about here, go look it up on your own. And if we're wrong about something, I tried to be as meticulous as possible with my research, but if we're wrong about something, leave a comment. Send me a DM on the shitty bird app that Elmo broke. Because here at the Maple Files, we're big on accountability. But I digress. Here's I don't know how else to introduce it. Like, here's the creepy ass leader of this creepy ass shit. Here he is, Klaus Schwab.
He looks like every criminal mastermind in comic book history.
I know.
Like, oh, here's Lex Luthor. Really, guys? You're not gonna try and give him some hair, maybe? He looks like freaking Dr. Evil. Give this man a Sphinx cat.
I'm pretty sure Dr. Evil was modeled after this man. I think they're like, okay, we need a Klaus Schwab type, but he can't look that much like a Galapagos turtle. We gotta tone down the Galapagos turtle likeness because Mitch McConnell already has that in the bag. So why don't we let's get Mike Myers. I don't really know how it started.
Less hair.
Yeah. So here he is, in his own words.
His mouth makes him look
At this pivotal moment, I see several priorities for the global agenda. We must continue to fight against the global pandemic. We must revitalize the global economy and accelerate its transition to net zero. We must preserve biodiversity by deploying nature-based solutions, and we must narrow the gap between the rich and the poor to achieve more sustainable global development.
Wow, that sounds pretty good, Klaus. Delivered in the most comic book, scary fashion possibly imaginable.
You know what the weird thing about Klaus Schwab is? Nobody heard about anything he's ever done till the WEF. Then all of a sudden he's the leader of a World Economic Forum. Never heard of this guy ever.
So Klaus Schwab, I believe he did found it. What I find weird is before around the pandemic, like you said, nobody knew who this guy was. They were kind of invested in Davos and maybe they heard of the World Economic Forum, but it wasn't public discourse. This just started as public discourse in a huge way. And all this stuff just started kind of disseminating into the public consciousness. That's what I find a little strange, if you will. But yeah. So a little bit of background context, just to discuss the World Economic Forum a little further. So there's a lot of different pieces to this sort of movement here, this organization. But the big thing they want to do is bring about what's called stakeholder capitalism. That's the big one. We'll go into that a little bit later because I do have the receipts on that. There is a book on it. So right off the bat, I find it very interesting that all of the top right-wing sort of influence accounts are saying the World Economic Forum is trying to do a communism. Because you can't do a communism and a capitalism. You can't really do both. That's not how any of this works, guys.
They're contradicting theories.
It's oil and water. But he's trying to do a different capitalism. And I saw a really funny meme. This was such a I wish I could find it. But it's like throughout history, let's do this type of capitalism. Let's do this type of capitalism. And every time there's just like fire and people like dying and shit. And then at the end it's Klaus.
Burning itself down.
And then it's Klaus at the end doing, let's do stakeholder capitalism. And then people are like, surely it'll work this time. It's like I think my personal take is I think stakeholder capitalism is just another rebranding of just capitalism trying to compromise with a system that naturally is incentivized to not compromise with everyday working class people. I think it's half rebranding, and I think maybe it's half a little more sinister than that, but we'll get into that right now, actually.
I would assume it's going to be more sinister than that, just based on historical preference or precedence. Sorry.
I mean, it could just be like, we're done with the neoliberalism thing. It's just fascism now. I'm sorry. Get in the cage.
Yeah. Welcome.
Well, welcome. This is your new prison. yes, we will brand you.
Mhm.
You're a little work cow now. But I digress. Let's get into it. Yes, it is blindingly bright. Apologies.
For decades, some of the world's most powerful people have gathered nearly every January at a ski resort in the Swiss mountains called Davos. Through its annual week of meetings, the World Economic Forum offers ultra-rich corporate leaders a chance to set out their vision for the future of business. For many of them,
If that doesn't just say it right there, guys, I don't know what to say. This is the Financial Times saying this. Like, if they can't even like put a bow on it, I don't know what to tell you.
Mm.
and for the WEF's founder Klaus Schwab, the central philosophy can be boiled down to a snappy two-word phrase: stakeholder capitalism. But what does stakeholder capitalism actually mean? And is it necessarily a good thing? The term gained traction in the mid-1980s, a time when politicians like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher were promoting the idea that widespread prosperity could be created by unleashing the animal spirits of profit-seeking capitalism. Their policies were built upon the ideas of economists like Milton Friedman, who famously wrote that there was one and only one social responsibility of business: to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profits, so long as it stays within the rules of the game. The doctrine of stakeholder capitalism took off as a reaction against this philosophy. It holds that corporate boards and executives should not simply try to serve their shareholders by increasing profits, but should pay equal attention to the interests of other stakeholders, such as customers, employees, and society as a whole. Who could have a problem with that? Actually, a large and growing number of people. The stakeholder capitalist drive has come under attack from the right, with conservative politicians arguing that it could conflict with legally enshrined fiduciary duty to investors. Meanwhile, other critics of the stakeholder capitalism agenda say that it's enabling super wealthy corporate leaders and investors to take an unhealthily powerful role in shaping how society responds to urgent social and environmental problems. They worry it could also hinder progress towards tough new regulations by keeping the focus on what companies can do voluntarily. So, is stakeholder capitalism a vital means of achieving a fairer, more enlightened world economy, or a dangerous idea that will strengthen the power of an unaccountable global elite? That's an important question to consider as you track the conversations taking place at Davos.
Yeah, so that's I don't know what to say. That's what they're looking to implement. So a couple things here. The takeaway here is, as I understand it, corporations are essentially going to have a role, so to speak, a seat at the table, so to speak, when it comes to governance. That's kind of how the stakeholder capitalism thing works. And again, the branding is good, because the branding has to be good. Because if the branding's not good, people are gonna connect the dots real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, wait, so governments and corporations just like working hand in hand? Wait, I know that. I learned about that in history class. They weren't on the right side. They were on the bad side.
The same term though. Something different.
Yeah. Like, wait, how does that go? First they came for the who? Oh no, I don't like that. So they're rebranding it, and I feel like the right is kind of feeding into this a lot, because they're trying to paint it as this like ultra left commie sort of situation. But if you go look up, and again, guys, look this up on your own. There's There's a lot of resources on stakeholder capitalism. I believe they have a Wikipedia page. Let me double check that real quick. They have to. They're remarkably what is stakeholder capitalism from Investopedia? Oh, this is I think Investopedia seems to have a pretty positive perspective on stakeholder capitalism.
I'm shocked.
Can't believe that would happen. Yeah, actually, I'm going to do a little on the fly stuff real quick. Just so the World Economic Forum has a breakdown of it too. So like you said, Yeti, a lot of this stuff is only popping out in the last little while. So, stakeholder capitalism is a form of capitalism in which companies seek long-term value creation by taking into account the needs of all their stakeholders in society at large. And if you're asking yourself, but Himbo, how can they do that when the nature of capitalism is contradictory to that? Great question, one I can't answer. These days, a lot of political and business leaders debate whether stakeholder capitalism would provide us with a better way to organize the economy. But what exactly is stakeholder capitalism, and where does it originate? In this blog, adapted from our book, Stakeholder Capitalism, A Global Economy That Works for Progress, People, and Planet, we like to tackle this question and provide the reader with a clear answer. Of course, it's like obnoxiously big. Look at this shit. It's half the page, guys. Did Klaus himself like boomer this?
Like, it looks like they got a kid to draw it too.
Yeah. I feel like that's intentional though, because they need to make it seem as like harmless as possible. Because look,
that's a good
so
point.
cute.
I like that actually. I got that.
It's so cute. It's like a kid drew it. There can't be anything nefarious behind this. History. The stakeholder concept goes a long way back, more than 50 years. I first wrote about it in 1971 when I was a young business academic, but its roots go even further. In the 1950s and 1960s, it was quite natural for a company and its CEO to consider not just shareholders, but everyone who has a stake in the success of a firm. That is the core of stakeholder capitalism. It is a form in which companies do not only optimize short-term profits for shareholders, but seek long-term value creation by taking into account the needs of all their stakeholders and society at large. Okay, so
That's literally what they sold capitalism as. Like they're literally redoing the exact same thing. Like, look, guys, I know last time we told you capitalism works. Okay, we were a little wrong. So this time we're trying super capitalism.
It's literally just super capitalism.
We got this, guys.
Capitalism now with extra fries. So you got businesses in the middle. So I don't know about you, but we're already not off to a great start.
Business in the front, corruption in the back. It's a mullet of reality.
So the central focus of this little image here is businesses at the core. Right off the bat, I'm a little nervous. I don't know why. Because you're putting all these other people, just state and society just to the side there. They just work together. State and society and businesses, this shit right here, that's the part they want you to like gloss over. It's like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean they're working with the government?
Society.
And I mean, businesses
run everything.
Yeah, and business and economy. That one's a little goofy. It's like, isn't that just how that works? Lenders, I don't. Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
see, like banks and lenders. That's what I really need to see and corporations. But like that's where a lot of the big issues come from, because banks make it easier to spend more money, but it makes them more money. But people always revert to like, oh, I can get a little nicer vehicle now, but I'll just have to pay some interest on it.
Mm-hmm. I just noticed we can make this a little bigger.
I'm not going to Newfoundland. I'm going to Nova Scotia. I'm going to Cape Breton, and we might be leaving in a few weeks. So,
okay,
I just want to answer the question.
What the fuck is this? What is this supposed to
sign of some shite?
What is this supposed to mean?
Look, guys, you know what it looks like? Have you ever seen those couples toilets they made a joke about where you can skin each other, like facing each other while you're pooping? That's what they've done. You can poop while you on the people and the planet simultaneously.
All right, so I'm not gonna kill everybody with reading this whole thing, but this I'm looking at looks to be a little important. Now again, I just pulled this up off the fly. The key stakeholders and their objectives: profits, purpose, prosperity, and peace. Ooh, alliteration. Yeah, this is already weird because I feel like you're trying to sell me too fucking hard here. To ensure that both people and the planet prosper, 4 key stakeholders play a crucial role. They are governments of countries, states, and local communities, civil society, from unions to NGOs, from schools and universities to action groups, companies constituting the private sector, whether freelancers or large multinational companies. Great. They're going to even keep contract workers. They're even keeping the gig economy.
Oh, great. That great economy where nobody has any power because all the workers are just cattle.
Yeah. And the international community, consisting of international organizations such as the UN, as well as regional organizations such as the European Union or ASEAN. Oh, and to counter a small point that I've seen right-wingers kind of run with here. They're like, oh, well, Xi Jinping has spoken at the World Economic Forum. There must be some sinister stuff behind that. Guys, I need to explain to y'all how China works, because we don't know better because we live in the West. In the West, our governments predominantly answer to business. They answer to the billionaire class. In China, the billionaire class has to answer to the state. So this isn't really like a thing he even has to kind of go along with here, because they can't pull any shit. If they do, China's got an answer for it. Trust me. They're not afraid to jail a billionaire, and they don't stop there without making this a little bit not friendly for kids. All these stakeholders crucially consist of people and make use of the planet. It is no surprise then that they should want to optimize the well-being of all of us as well as that of the environment. Really? Because, like, we have capitalism now, and it just doesn't do that at all. So why is it no surprise? It's a big surprise, because we're not seeing any of that in the real world. I'm not seeing anything in the real world, but I digress. But equally, it should be clear that they have specific objectives that make them distinct organisms in the first place. Governments focus on creating the greatest possibly prosper. Am I having a stroke, or is this just not a sentence that works?
Do you smell burnt toast? Government focuses on creating the greatest possibly prosperity? That is a horrible, horrible sentence.
Okay.
Did they not get some lighters in here? God.
I think Klaus did this. I think Klaus did this after like a 6-pack. For the greatest number of people. Okay, that sounds good. I love possibly prosperity for the greatest.
See, there's never any actual numbers. It's just soft talk and ideas and thoughts and prayers.
It's like the underpants gnomes. You know that meme where it's like step 1, steal underpants, step 2, question mark, step 3, profit? That's what all of these are. Because they don't like they never give any like They never give you any juice. They just give you a little bit of like, we're going to do good things anyway. Sign here. Okay. Civil society exists to advance the interests of its constituents and to give a meaning or purpose to its members. Okay. Companies aim to generate an economic surplus measurable in profits in the short run and long-term value creation in the long run.
Capitalism.
Yeah. So are people going to read this and be like, that's so different from what we have right now?
Yeah, like anybody reading this is going to be like, cannot think anything, be like, isn't that how the system already works? Like, that's what we were told it does.
And the overarching goal for the international community is to preserve peace. Okay, well, you know, you guys have been around for a while and kind of a hard sell in the midst of a genocide and two near hot wars, but I digress.
Do they have weapon manufacturers? Guys showed up to this? Do you know?
We'll get into that.
Interesting to see.
No, we'll get into it. Because here's the thing, guys. You can go on their website, and we'll get into that later, but you can look up all the people, all the swamp monsters in bed with these. Oh my god, I'm gonna jump out a window. They got another. What?
Ooh, people and the planet now.
It leads to the stakeholder model as we know today, valid anywhere in the world, when the well-being of people and planet are at the center of business. The four remaining key groups of stakeholders contribute to their betterment. Oh, just like that? It just happens? Crazy. This is nuts.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't the most profit been made off destroying the environment for the most part?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Seems like a pretty outright lie, guys.
As all of these groups and their goals are interconnected, one cannot succeed if the others fail. Okay, but again, by this whole logic, by this entire logic, this would have already happened somehow. Okay, so they got the people planet thing, the weird, like, almost Ouroboros. You've got...
It's like the infinity sign?
And then you got, like... I swear to God, the point of all of this is to confuse you so much that your brain doesn't automatically go to the scary place that, like, some of this rhetoric is making your brain go to. The model is simple, but it immediately reveals why shareholder primacy and state capitalism lead to suboptimal outcomes. They focus on the more granular and exclusive objectives of profits or prosperity in a particular company or country, rather than the well-being of all people and the planet as a whole. Okay, all right. So we're looking at less towards like multiple governments and more of a possibly one world sort of situation, if you will. I've heard that before somewhere. I just By contrast, in the stakeholder model, neither of the more granular objectives is set aside, but the interconnectivity and the overall arching well-being of people and the planet are central, ensuring a more harmonious outcome over time. Okay, so my first question is, if all of these things should be just no duh, they should be happening, why aren't they happening right now under capitalism? Secondly, and this is the biggest one, okay? If you've read any kind of theory, what up, Golden Monarch? Gonna shout out people real quick. What up, Nihilo? Nick, what up, buddy? Thank you guys for tuning in. Hey, Max.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Old Man Barker, always great to have you here. Hey, CBC voter, what's up? So, and for those of y'all who do not know terms for ADHD, what I just fucking did there is called squirreling. It's when you're in the middle of a sentence and you get distracted. I will do it again.
If you guys haven't noticed, I do it a lot.
So, my point is, my big question, there are internal contradictions within the capitalist system. If you're going to lead leave the whole like, oh, businesses can do some profits as a treat. What is going, what stopgaps, what preventative measures are you going to have in place to prevent them from going against all of the other shit you're talking about, which they're doing right now, in order to achieve those profits? Because they need to get the profits, and giving consideration to those other aspects of what you're presenting here, guys, that hurts their profits. So what are your mechanisms for remedying that? They don't mention that at all, though. So that's stakeholder capitalism. Yeah. So that's kind of stakeholder capitalism in a nutshell. This is just my personal opinion, because we don't really know a ton about it, because again, a ton of the communication is almost purposefully obtuse. But my personal opinion is this seems like just fascism with a really pretty bow on top. That's all I'm seeing here. I've studied stakeholder capitalism pretty much as I can see, and that's the only conclusion I can come to. If you guys disagree, if anybody has a different take, please let me know, but I can't arrive at any other conclusion than it's like, we want to make it really, really pretty and nice and like altruistic, and oh my God, you're such a good person for supporting this, for essentially just letting the corporations and state completely work harmoniously together.
It's like letting the cops investigate the cops. It's not going to do anything. It's going to be a revolving door of nothing happening, and we'll continue to be in the same position. Well, no, we won't. It'll continue to get worse and worse and worse.
All right, so that's stakeholder capitalism. I hope you enjoyed it. Here's like I said, there's multiple components to this whole thing. The next thing we got is the World Economic Forum also has program that you guys might be familiar with, because I know some of y'all are well read. You're smart cookies. You think about shit. They got the Young Global Leaders program. The Forum of Young Global Leaders accelerates the impact of a diverse community of responsible leaders across borders and sectors to shape a more inclusive and sustainable future. And in case you're wondering, is this going to contain a lot more nebulous as fuck language? I have bad news for you. Inspire. YGLs are motivated to use their talent and influence to be a force of good. We cultivate collective and individual leadership to help develop informed, visionary global change makers. Connect. Oh my God, this is like, have you ever been in one of those like corporate meetings where they have this bullshit, where they've got like a word that describes their company, and then like they give a little like wispy diatribe on the word and how it applies to their company? They're doing this. This is already like the most corporate it can possibly be, and they're trying to frame it as anything but.
Corporate needs you to find the difference between capitalism and stakeholder capitalism.
The same picture. That's perfect. Oh no. Young global leaders believe that by pooling their diverse skills, experiences, and networks, they can achieve more together. We foster collaboration in the global public interest. Transform. YGLs, I hate YG. Like, just stop. Just stop with that. Just don't. Just call them baby fascists. I'm kidding.
Well, YGL, I mean, you're starting to get a little bit like the young group in Germany.
I know. That's the scariest part.
So you got a German guy who's hell-bent on world domination. I'm just saying.
Again, guys, this is why people like me on the left are screaming about this from the rooftops. Okay? We don't want to... I don't want to have to go do another Battle of Berlin, okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to do it again. We had to do it the first time. And then the West
I am
couldn't
not
even...
built for this.
No. YGLs are pioneering and bold. We identify and champion ways to scale up, amplify, and accelerate their impact to make more of a difference in their communities and beyond. About us, our growing membership of more than 1,400 members and alumni of 120 nationalities includes civic and business innovators, entrepreneurs, technology pioneers, educators, activists, artists, journalists, and more. Along with the World Economic Forum's mission, we seek to drive public-private cooperation again. They can't help themselves. Public-private cooperation. They keep shoving it in your face. We're united by the belief. Sorry, what's that?
Oh, sorry. No, just go ahead.
We're united by the belief that today's pressing problems present an opportunity to build a better future across sectors and boundaries. Our principle... Oh, I want to die. You can't be... What? You're doing more...
some arrows to go like a flow chart. They really messed up on this one. They didn't make the flow chart. I'm not impressed.
You got more words down. Are they the same word? It's different word. Oh my God. Our principles. As part of their commitment to responsible leadership, young global leader community members have come together to define principles for interacting with one another and in the world. Generosity. We take time to listen and support each other at a deep human level. We go out of our way to make a difference to one another's work. We're inclusive. We challenge each other and make diversity a source of strength. Speaking of the inclusivity, just on breaking Canadian news real quick, speaking of all that inclusivity, the Liberal Party, who is very much aligned with the World Economic Forum, just announced it will not be attending Pride Month because of pro-Palestinian sentiment. So, very inclusive, guys. That's like doubly non-inclusive too, because you're like abandoning Pride because of pro-Palestine. So you're excluding two groups of people at once.
And all these boomers that talk about Russia and China interference, not one word about Israel interference. Not one.
No, because the word anti-Semite is like, that's like blood chilling. That's like a blood chilling, because like essentially you're just calling
killing Palestinians is anti-Semitic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we're talking about fascism. The coverage so far is leaning pretty close in that direction. So the whole like we're just gonna let a genocide go down. I don't know, guys. Like I'm a little concerned. I don't know why more people on the left aren't.
Well, it's like he was guilty in the IOC court for being like genocide, and the rest of the world's like, our hands are tied. We can't do anything.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's I'm not even gonna finish this. It's just more platitudes. We'll go through the oh my god, what is all annual report? Nobody's gonna read this, Turtle. History. Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, created the Forum of Young Global Leaders in 2004 to help the world meet increasingly complex and interdependent problems. Sounds a lot like get them while they're young to me. His vision was to create a proactive, multi-stakeholder community. There it is. Jesus Christ.
Training camps.
Yeah. Multi-stakeholder community of the world's next generation leaders to inform and influence decision-making and mobilize transformation. Through the Forum of Young Global Leaders, Klaus Schwab envisioned facilitating earnest dialogue and friendships across cultures to bridge divides, fostering fresh thinking and dynamic new ways of collaboration to shape a more positive, peaceful, and prosperous community. Now, pop quiz, everybody. What famous Canadian was a young global leader?
Trudeau.
The one leading the country. What other Canadian was a young global leader?
Milhouse.
We'll get to that. But on paper, the one leading the NDP. Both of them.
Oh, Jagmeet Singh. Or
Yeah.
Jagmeet, sorry.
It's interesting how they're both kind of like in a coalition together, huh? It's weird how that happened because the NDP I voted for, was very hostile towards the Liberals.
Yeah.
That's the NDP I remember.
Wasn't pre-planned at all.
No. But I digress. That's the young global leaders in a nutshell. And we have a list of current young global leaders as well. As you can see, this is pretty wide spanning. Oh, chief executive officer of TikTok. Wow, that's crazy. It seems like a lot of bigwigs, almost predominantly
Priest Society of Jesus, Jesuits.
That's a lot of CEOs. Wow.
Chief executive officer, which are just a bunch of people that don't do anything at all.
No.
They're just cutthroat and willing. Well, no, they really don't do anything. They just get put in those positions as like, like favors to like family members. Because a lot of those families, especially in the States, started to like intermarry, like the Comos and the Kennedys. The Clintons and someone else have also married.
Oh my God, look at all this. It's like I'm seeing. Hold on. Let's just search this.
Sally Shin, Copper Ravine, Commissioner Oceans Fisheries European.
Look at my find here. Oh, you guys can't see it. Okay, so I control F Chief Executive Officer, and there's 99 results.
Holy.
So, yeah. So that's the young global leaders.
So there's International Monetary Fund. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the young global leaders. Sounds a lot like them getting in early, so to speak. But as you can see, there's an alarmingly high amount of corporate slime on that list. So
not one actual worker that's ever done anything in their life.
Well, no, not the dirty proles, because this whole thing is just made, in my opinion.
In lieu of prison, we should take all the billionaires and just put them on an island and see how well they do.
Oh, they'll eat each other. Or, you know what? They would try to exploit one another. It would turn into like a war. Because they'd try to like proletarianize the other billionaires, and they would like push back, and they would try to proletarianize them. They'd all instantly burst into flames because they have no surplus value of labor to feed off of. Epstein Island.
Perfect. I was like, we need to find an island we're not going to actually affect anyone else.
You know what, guys?
Australia again. That's bad.
You know what? God bless them. They actually beat us to it. They already have their own island. Epstein Island, and is there another one with the big owl? They got that too. They got two islands. Is Bohemian Grove on an island? I gotta look this up.
No, it's down in California in the Redwoods.
The Redwoods, gotcha. I always thought it was on an island.
Big ass trees. There's. I'll have to think about that one again. Yeah, there is some more islands with people and stuff.
I digress. Another part of this World Economic Forum insanity is, you may have heard this term during the recent disease period of life. I'm going to try and really not get us a label here. It's hard of seeing those, especially when they make no sense. The Great Reset. That's one too. That's one y'all may have been a little bit more familiar with here. They've got, this was in 2020. Push to reset the world. So the Great Reset is an agenda. Oh my God, look at this. Hear Klaus Schwab on these podcast episodes, The Great Reset launch and his book. Yes, he wrote a book. We'll get into it in a bit. But basically, the takeaway here is a desire to take the crisis that was COVID and pivot from it into creating a better world. We can emerge from this crisis a better world if we act quickly and jointly, writes Schwab. The changes we have already seen in response to COVID-19 prove that a reset of our economic and social foundations is possible. This is our best chance to instigate stakeholders. They just can't help themselves. They're like, listen, everything is going back to the new capitalism that's going to work better than the old capitalism. Don't look into it, and definitely don't look up any words that start with F.
But communism never works.
Yeah, of course. Nope, never. That's why we have to. That's why we have to shut it down in every country they try it. COVID lockdowns may be gradually easing, but anxiety about the world's social and economic prospects is only intensifying. There's good reason to worry. A sharp economic downturn has already begun, and we could be facing the worst depression since the 1930s. What happened after the 1930s? Something in the 1940s, I forgot. Anyway, doesn't matter. But while this outcome is likely, it is not unavoidable. To achieve a better outcome, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from educational to social contracts and working conditions. Every country, from the United States to the other country that would execute most of the billionaires we're friends with, sorry, China, must participate. And every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. Again, like, I think they're just starting to understand that people are starting to realize the shit isn't working. And they're like, okay, but we can't give it up. So we got to, like, rework it into something else.
They're rebranding.
Yeah, it's like it feels. I'm not going to lie, it just feels like rebranding. That's all it seems like.
That's exactly what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They're just trying to think of a way to get out of it. Like, oh, we got to think of another system before we screwed. We're already screwed.
There are many reasons to pursue a great reset, but the most urgent is COVID-19. Having already led to hundreds of thousands of deaths, which probably would have been a lot lower if some of the information was a little better, or if we handled it less disastrously. But I digress again. This will have serious long-term consequences for economic growth, public debt, employment, and human well-being. According to the Financial Times, global government debt has already reached its highest level in peacetime. Moreover, unemployment is skyrocketing in many countries. In the US, for example, 1 in 4 workers have filed for unemployment since mid-March, with new weekly claims far above historic highs. Wow. Why would anybody be filing for unemployment in 2020? I don't get it. Can you explain? Could anything have been happening that might have caused them to lose their job? Oh, right.
No.
Right. They just lost their job because their job was done because they couldn't do it anymore. Got it. The International Monetary Fund expects the world economy to shrink by 3% this year, a downgrade of 6.3 percentage points in just 4 months. All of this will exacerbate the climate and social crises that were already underway. Some countries have already used the COVID-19 crisis as an excuse to weaken environmental protections and enforcement. And frustration over social ills like rising inequality. U.S. billionaires' combined wealth has increased during the crisis are intensifying. Yeah, sorry, this is absolutely rebranding. They're like, we guys, we gotta address this somehow. We gotta relabel here, or we're cooked.
We're screwed.
Let's see here. Left unaddressed. These crises, together with COVID-19, will deepen and leave the world even less sustainable, less equal, and more fragile. Incremental measures and ad hoc fixes will not suffice to prevent this scenario. We must build entirely new foundations for our economic and social systems. The level of cooperation and ambition this implies is unprecedented, but it is not some impossible dream. Oh my God. Oh no. They made a mega chart.
Ooh. Future of mobility, justice and law, civil rights, human rights, gender parity. They can't even figure out what gender is, though. How do we know what gender parity is? Like not to be like disrespectful, like trans community or any of that, but it's like, oh, hey, what's up? Yeah, how do they know gender parity if they can't figure out what gender is anymore?
Well, the problem is nobody agrees on it. You got one side that's saying, you know, it's like, it's absolutely this. And you got another side that's saying it's absolutely that. Neither of them are willing to like move an inch on their positions. And they're just fighting over it. And I'll get into the culture war in another episode. But that's what I feel like the problem is. It's like nobody can agree. Nobody can agree on this at all. I digress. I'm not going to force you guys to read all of this, but I think the point's made here. So like we covered in stakeholder capitalism, the Great Reset, I feel like that's essentially just like a push to implement this stakeholder capitalism. I feel like that's all it is. I feel like it's like, oh, we had the pandemic, never let a good crisis go to waste. Whoops, please delete that, secretary. We don't want to give that much away. And like, it's just an excuse to usher in this new way more friendly, less evil version of capitalism, where the government and corporations work seamlessly together. So it's like, I don't know, it's also, it might be like simultaneously like a rebranding and just kind of like pulling the mask off and just going full fash like completely. I mean, in a lot of, let's discuss this for a sec. In a lot of ways, corporations and government are already working together, but they need a lot of, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of illusions of choice. There's a lot of, purposeful obfuscation, if you will. With stakeholder capitalism, they're just working together. They're pals. They're buds. So they don't really need, they can just cut, they can just cut they can kill the middleman, so to speak. So that in the nutshell is the Great Reset. And I just wanted you guys, because I know this might be putting people's backs up a little bit. Okay, because it's a touchy subject. And to those people who have been told this is a conspiracy theory, that what we're talking about is some kind of like right-wing blah blah blah. Okay? This is Amazon. This is from Klaus Schwab. These are the books you can purchase right now if you'd like to learn more. There's COVID-19, the Great Reset. There's the Fourth Industrial Revolution. There's stakeholder capitalism. Yeah. And shaping the future of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. For those who want to know a little bit more, the Fourth Industrial Revolution is essentially just like, it's kind of, what do we do when technology which should be to the benefit of the whole society. What do we do when that technology displaces millions of workers because we live under capitalism, and the capitalists will do anything they can to decrease their labor value, or their labor cost? That's all that is. It's like, how do we get around this? Because here's what I don't think, I'm reading between the lines here. The capitalist class is correctly pointing out that if they don't nip this problem in the bud, there's going to be millions of people with nothing to do.
Yep.
Millions of people with nothing to do and no way to feed themselves is historically not a good idea when it comes to your personal dominance and your personal control over other people. It's also very much not good for profits because, again, they need people with purchasing power or they're going to lose their profits. So that's that right there. Getting into the fourth industrial revolution might be a good standalone because there's a lot of stuff there. But the point I'm making is, anyone who says this is a conspiracy theory, just go check out one of the books that this dude has on Amazon. That is completely not censored, not blocked away, nothing to see here, folks. You just order the book and read it. So, to that note, in case, again, you think this is a conspiracy theory, go to weforum.org/partners, and you can actually search their partners. So, Amazon. What's another one? Yeti, give me a company.
Google.
Oh my God. No
Microsoft.
way. Microsoft and Microtech Medical.
What about Boeing?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, let's go look. Did I spell it wrong?
No.
Oh, interesting. That is interesting. So none of the MIC military industrial complex companies seem to be partnered. Oh, but wait, hold on. I think I know what they did. There it fucking is.
BlackRock owns everything.
And Blackstone Group. That's another rabbit hole, in case you guys are wondering. So you can do this for pretty much anything. Pretty much any company that you can think of, really. Let's type in Trudeau for sure. For shits. Okay. Of course not. Actually, I'm a little curious. What about RBC? Oh, no. Wait, not C. Please, no. Please. No. Okay.
CIBC?
Is that CIBC?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. Or is this for we?
It's something different.
Is that where they launder their money through?
Okay, so all of our banks are working with the World Economic Forum. That's fine, guys. That's fine. It's perfectly fine. But my point is, go to this site, go to partners, go look up your company. Your company might be up there. You never know. Right?
I did not register my company with these people.
Well, not your company. Like, if you're a worker, the company you're working for. Let's actually, this is going to kill everybody. No Tim Hortons. Wait, what's the parent company that owns Tim Hortons now?
I think it's like the same company that owns Burger King.
Yeah, it is. So what is that company? Let's look this up. Okay. Parent, Wendy's, Restaurant Brands International. I remember that. Yeah, Burger King. So it's Restaurant Brands International. Oh, look at that. Okay.
But they could be sending CEOs too.
That's true. Let's see. When. Okay. Well, they don't have everybody yet. But still, that's an interesting deep dive, to be sure.
Check McDonald's.
That's a good one, actually. McDermott. Damn that McDermott.
Oh, Yum Brands.
I'm just curious, like, how many gaming companies are involved? Oh my God, is
try
Blizzard?
PepsiCo.
PepsiCo.
There you go.
Yep.
Knew that'd be there.
Ew. I do
PepsiCo and like Coca-Cola own like 90% of what's in grocery stores. There you go. The Coca-Cola company.
Does Loblaws has to have a parent company?
I'm not sure. I thought Loblaws was the parent company, actually. Good.
President's choice. Interesting. Okay. All right. Well,
they're only really big in Canada, though. So
that's true, and they've already kind of wormed their way into our government. So got a game set match there, right? Okay. So everybody here might be asking themselves, where does Canada come into this? Well, I'm going to introduce you guys to where we got part of our... Oh my God, the cats are trying to break in. Let me introduce you guys to a video that is part of our intro, for now at least. Would love to meet.
When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Remember that?
But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina, and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Half. He's bragging.
It's insane.
That half are affiliated with these people. So
that's like a quarter of our government almost.
Pretty much. But please, let's argue over FART some more.
I took two things that I love, dancing and dogs, and I made them into a successful business.
This is interesting.
The Deputy Prime Minister taking the stage in Davos, discussing how Ottawa is looking to adjust the Canadian economy coming off the pandemic.
After the shock that we all experienced during COVID, with things shut down, our people are just going to demand a little more security in their supply chains.
Chrystia Freeland was part of the panel on how economic recovery requires trade and investment during Thursday's session at the World Economic Forum Summit. She says while the pandemic had a major impact on the global economy, geopolitical issues like Russia's invasion of Ukraine have also increased pressures on inflation. A former Bank of Canada governor thinks there is a shift taking place, which is changing how global trade is being addressed.
Our trade routes are being rewired through de-risking of supply chains. That is a form of a supply shock. It will have some persistence. Obviously, energy systems are being rewired with addressing climate change.
Mark Carney is also the UN Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance and says the push away from fossil fuels will play a factor through the rest of the decade. It's something climate protesters have brought to the Swiss resort town. But the oil industry says providing there are no major challenges, 2024 could be a stable year.
If one or more than one a major oil producing country is directly involved in the conflict, this may well give a upward pressure on the prices.
These comments come as U.S. forces struck Houthi rebel military sites in Yemen Thursday as tensions in the oil-rich Middle East remain high. The Houthis have disrupted global shipping routes by hijacking...
Okay. That's a good take. That's what we need, more security. So, that's Canadians up there on the World Economic Forum. They're talking about a drastic change that needs to be made because of the pandemic. And I just want to ask y'all, does that sound a little familiar based on what we covered earlier? Sounds pretty much identical to the whole reset thing they're talking about. Same language, actually. It's almost like they were just kind of handed, you know, a script.
Interesting.
Now, I'm going to further put this point home. Now, this is from a site called beyondthenarrative.ca. I don't know which leaning it has, but I do want to give you guys a little bit of a tip here. You'll fall into a trap whenever there's some media organization or another, whether it's a content creator, whether it's a website, where people will try and frantically dismiss it by saying, oh, that's like a left-leaning website, or oh, that's like a right-leaning website. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the content. What are they saying? Is it correct? Can we verify this? And I did verify this on my own. Please go and check it for yourself. Don't believe me, some himbo on the internet or some Yeti on the internet. Go and check it yourself.
Read.
But the whole purpose of this post here was to identify elected members of Canadian governments that were also members or participants in the World Economic Forum. And they claim that as the research has continued, they found more and more connections. So right off the bat, we got the big ones. Justin Trudeau, Christina Freeland, Jagmeet, sorry. The A fucks me up every damn time. Sorry, Jagmeet. I didn't mean to mispronounce your name. So right off the bat, you got two leaders of two major parties in our country affiliated.
And basically the second in command.
Here's some special notes. Pierre Poilievre. Now, you might ask, why did they list him? Why did they list Pierre Poilievre when, and we'll come back to this, why did they list Pierre Poilievre?
Let's talk about some of the bigger picture issues.
When he was on a podcast, I'm pretty sure this is some kind of reactionary podcast, because let's be real, most of them are just reactionary podcasts.
Sure.
Why would they list him on that site after he says comments such as the following?
Issues that I've heard a lot of concerns about from conservative members and conservative supporters, and I'd say people that are potentially available to you as a leadership candidate seeking support in the next few months. And one big one, which admittedly I have talked about for years, and I think it's only in the last couple of months that it's gained a lot more traction, I think outside of a small group of people that have been working on it, is some of the global influences we see in a lot of Justin Trudeau's policy. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about conspiratorial thinking here. I'm not talking about global cabals, but you do have, for example, the World Economic Forum, a group that Justin Trudeau and many people in his cabinet have actually promoted and actively participated in. We've got the Great Reset, stakeholder capitalism, all of these things. And you've spoken out, I think, about some of these even on the floor of the House of Commons. I've had people that have said that you yourself are connected to the World Economic Forum. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to address this head on, because I'm sure you've seen it as well. Is there a connection there? Have you ever spoken at a World Economic Forum event?
No, I have not. No, I've never been to Davos. I've never been part of the organization. And I don't agree with its publicly stated policy objectives. My policies are different. I obviously support small government, more freedom, and individual independence.
Small government, but I wonder what small government could mean. Because if it's small government, well, what's going to fill the void?
I just have a fundamental disagreement with the organization's policy outlook. And that is something that you can look at my track record. I've said that on the floor of the House of Commons. I said it in parliamentary committees. I've said it in comments that I've made online for years. So anybody who wants to know my position on that subject can simply check it out and look up what I've actually said, because I've been deadly consistent on that issue.
All right. Okay, Millhouse. Let's check out your track record. Let's check it out. Let's go. This is archive.org. If it ever fucking loads. So, this is essentially the internet's Wayback Machine. So it archives, basically gives you a screenshot of a website. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe the values here would be a date of some kind. The 2021 looks, is there anywhere else to... Oh, it's right here. So April 2021. April 2021. Pierre Poilievre was on the World Economic Forum's website. Oh. We switch to the following year and suddenly the page is gone. Interesting. Now, this is obviously not enough to go off. I'll be the first one to say this is not enough to go off to draw a definitive conclusion. But I find it a little weird that he'd be on the website. Really a little interesting, as the guy who's claiming to be the fierce opposition to the dictator Trudeau and all that. But, I mean, it wouldn't be that different from, say, the United States of America, because for as much of a fierce opposition Donald Trump claims to have with Joe Biden, ask yourself, what is the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump's position on, I don't know, say, Israel?
You can't talk about Israel.
I just did.
Oh, we're in trouble.
We are in trouble. We are now going to die. And that's the thing, guys. I'm not saying Pierre's 100% controlled opposition. I'm just saying, keep this in mind. Okay? The guy talking about the World Economic Forum suddenly having his profile scrubbed at a very curious time, mind you. Very curious time, because actually, let's go back to that video real quick.
At Chewy, keep their bowls full.
2 years ago, March 15th, 2022. It was about a year after his ass was on the website. Just saying. I'm just saying. And then Maxime Bernier, the colorful individual that we covered in Canadian Politics 101. If you haven't checked that out and you're curious about Canadian politics and different political Canadian factions, please check that out. Maxime is essentially, he's part of the memes party. I'm just going to call it the memes party. The 4chan party. That's another one to do it. So there's no evidence of membership, but he did attend an annual meeting in January 2008, which is interesting.
Yeah, especially so long ago.
Let's click this. And again, it's the Government of Canada website. Oh, that's an L. Oh, Maxime, that's a big L, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Travel to Davos, Switzerland.
1982.
We got a quote. The World Economic Forum brings together world economic and political leaders to hold informal and constructive discussions on global issues, such as social development and economics, said Minister Bernier. While at the WEF, in my discussions with my counterparts, I intend to advance Canadian priorities on issues of international cooperation, foreign policy, and reconstruction in Afghanistan. Well, again, no definitive conclusions, but it's not.
Canada's been invited to the WEF annual meeting since 1982.
Yep. It's the long. You got to give them credit for the long game.
Yep.
So, and again, I don't know what Ben this website has, but you know what? We checked it out, and they got the receipts, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad thing. Now I got another one. Again, I don't know the lead in this article or this website. I just look at the site and go check it. That's what you should do. Don't worry about the noise of like, is this website like biased? Is it not? Just check the information being provided. If you can't find a confirmation of the information, then you don't have to put it into a category. It's just not a reliable website. Then again, everybody goes to CNN and, well, we know how reliable that shit is. So this is the Niagara Independent. Now, off the bat, it seems like it's got a bit of a goofy conservative thing because it's got all this weird, like, I don't know, the conservative sites are very boomer curious, I feel. They've always got these weird advertisements like we're on a fucking GeoCities site back in the day. And I swear to God, I miss my GeoCities page. But I digress. This is 2023. WEF's intrusive agenda being debated in many countries, though Canada remains an exception. Although it's not openly explained to Canadians, the Trudeau government is diligently introducing policies and programs authored by the World Economic Forum, the WEF. The World Economic Forum global initiatives are championed in Canada by PM Justin Trudeau, who is a celebrated national figure by the forum's chairman Klaus Schwab, Deputy PM and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, who sits as a trustee on the WEF board. A number of other prominent liberals like Mark Carney and Catherine McKenna, who play active roles in furthering WEF objectives in this country and around the world. Curious they didn't mention Jugmeat.
Mm-hmm.
For WEF proponents, this was another rough week as news broke that the Dutch government had collapsed. I don't remember it collapsing per se. Mark Rutte has held office since 2010 and is one of the senior-most statesmen in the European Union, EU. And the Canadian connection, Rutte is also recognized along beside Justin Trudeau as one of the twin golden pinup boys for Klaus Schwab in the WEF's globalist agenda, according to Australian Sky News Network. Now, I do think Sky News is more like a right-winger conspiracy sort of whatever, but again,
they lean pretty heavily conservative for sure.
Yeah. But the point they're making is they're complaining essentially that Canadian media is deliberately not covering stories related to anything that would go against the agenda. Like, for example, the strikes, the farmer protests, which, I mean, admittedly, I haven't really seen a lot of Canadian media sources cover that. But we can check that out because we're going to fact check.
They did have some pretty big protests in Denmark.
Yeah.
The farmers were driving down the road and stuff. Great.
Okay. So, let's see. Dutch farmer protest. Nope. Nope. Interesting. All right, so maybe not CBC. Give me another one.
Global.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Is that Global News? Oh, that's the UK. gbnews.uk. The Hill. Sky News.
That's crazy.
I'm not gonna lie. The narrative that site is running. I don't know about the Dutch government collapsing, but the narrative that these events, which this definitively did happen, there's some meat. There's some meat to that story. Now, speaking of, we got really lucky that like my ADHD squirrel brain is somehow like segueing us almost seamlessly. It will not happen often, but this is just, I don't know. I rolled a natural 20 on ADHD tonight, I think. But I digress. The National Post. This is their framing on the World Economic Forum. First reading. Does the WEF secretly control the Canadian government? No, but it's not an entirely crazy idea. As revealed by the National Post's Christopher Nardi, the Federal Ethics Commissioner has been barraged by more than 1,000 requests for the office to investigate claims that senior members of the Canadian government are under the sway of the World Economic Forum. It's indicative of a theory that has gained remarkable currency among Canadian right-wing circles, especially during the events of Freedom Convoy. Oh, of course. Of course we got to shit on the truckers.
Yep. I was going to throw that in there, so it ties them together.
And of course, any inquiries, like I said, the point I made, the reason we're doing this is I want more discussion on the World Economic Forum outside of these reactionary factions.
Yep. Yeah, we have to have serious discussions about how we're going to, one, deal with the problem, and then solutions to our upcoming problems.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have problems.
Because the solutions I'm going to advocate for is going to be different from these reactionary circles. Because what they're going to argue is as long as we just like work with capitalism, much like the WEF, ironically, if we just get the certain bad guys out of the system will work great. They're not going to have a solution. That's the problem. And that's why I think the right, the reactionaries, are allowed to speak freely about this, because they'll never have a solution to this. Because in order to actually push back against this, there is no solution that won't threaten capital. That's why it's verboten in left-leaning spaces, because all of our shit threatens capital.
Yep. And that's where all their power comes from, the manipulation of the financial systems.
Yep.
So as soon as we start cutting that back, we'll be a lot better off.
The gist is that the Swiss-headquartered World Economic Forum is secretly pulling the strings on the Canadian federal government, particularly when it comes to COVID policy. The short answer is no. But it's not entirely crazy to jump to the conclusion that an international cabal of ultra-leftists, stakeholder capitalists, are ultra-leftists. That's wow. I didn't know that.
Why?
God damn. Okay, so it's right wing, but the bad guys they think are ultra elitists. I'm an idiot. Is secretly pulling the strings of world affairs, particularly when they keep claiming as much. Let us explain. World Economic Forum head Klaus Schwab certainly acts like the head of a global conspiracy. Schwab has a thick German accent, eerily straight posture, and a penchant to consistently claim that he deserves the Nobel Prize and has infiltrated governments around the world. Well, it's not that he's claiming that. It's that there's receipts that we provided in this string. Most notoriously, in 2017, he claimed he was able to penetrate the cabinet of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau by virtue of the fact that many of its ministers had once been members of the WEF's Young Global Leaders program. I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half his cabinet, or even more than half his cabinet, are actually young global leaders, said Schwab in a widely circulated video. The creepy language is not only limited to Schwab. The WEF put out a video praising a future where you'll own nothing and be happy. That's their hallmark phrase. And in the depths of COVID-19, the group began relentlessly trumpeting the pandemic as an opportunity for a great reset under which the global economy would be rebuilt to their preferred specifications. When Trudeau subsequently used the word reset to describe Canadian pandemic policy at a UN speech in November 2020, the accusation was that he was taking the line directly from his shadowy WEF masters. The WEF is basically a group of absurdly rich people pretending they're saving the world.
Cosplay for rich people.
That's not wrong, but there's a spin. If the WEF is guilty of any conspiracy, it's the one where they convene unbelievably expensive conferences in Davos, Switzerland, where attendees eat $50 burritos and pretend that they're altruistic heroes out to save the planet. It's a phenomenon called the Davos Man. While prior generations of the elite were generally comfortable limiting their social engagements to elite golf clubs or yachting regattas, the genius of the WEF has been in attracting a new kind of elite who, in the words of one analysis, wants gratitude and validation that he's doing his part to make the world a better place. So there's a word for that. It's called a narcissist. If you want the specifics, it's a covert narcissist. They just want the gratitude and the validation. They don't care where the fuck it comes from. That's all they care about. It's also called a neoliberal. A recent Vanity Fair profile called it a place where the uber rich schmooze and strike deals under the guise of saving the world. A frequent theme of WEF summits are corporate and world leaders giving high-flying optimistic speeches about human brotherhood, even as they pursue policies that are effectively the exact opposite, such as Microsoft CEO talking about AI ethics as his company sells surveillance technology to China. You gotta mention the boogeyman, guys. It's for this reason that the WEF has an uncanny ability to attract a who's who of CEOs and G20 political influencers. Anybody can attend an elite networking conference, but only the WEF offers a prospect of doing it while feeling good about inventing new civilization-saving buzzwords, such as friendshoring. I don't know what the fuck this is. Hold on. What is friendshoring? Way too much. Someone go look up friendshoring. I don't know what it means. Here's the spin, because you know there's a spin coming. There's a bit of difference between attending a conference and being a compliant Illuminati puppet. Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner is obviously no fan of the Trudeau government, but she did attend a Davos summit in 2016. In a lengthy essay for The Line, she described it as basically an academic conference, albeit way more expensive and elite. But the appearance has dogged Garner ever since with allegations that she's a WEF puppet. The thrust of Garner's counter-argument is that conspiracists are putting too much stock in the notion that a politician could have their entire allegiance shaped simply by attending a conference, receiving an award, or reading a badly conceived white paper. If Trudeau has a weakness for using WEF talking points, she wrote, it's mostly because he's an idiot who recycles fashionable buzzwords and wouldn't mind an invite back to the Davos party scene. How much longer is this? Oh my God. Think of it as a secular version of the accusations that once dogged the Catholic Church. We easily forget the Catholic politicians once faced mainstream criticisms that they were pawns of the Vatican, and now the spin comes in. In 1928, U.S. Democratic presidential nominee Al Smith was decisively defeated in part because of accusations that he would amend the U.S. Constitution to establish Catholicism as the country's state religion. And here's where the spin comes in. The WEF ultimately kind of sucks at influencing world events. One easy way to debunk the notion of the WEF as a secret world government.
That guy's super cool.
He is to take a look at just how many of its alumni refuse to honor the group's utopian version of stakeholder capitalism and global free trade. Okay. So there's more examples down here. I'm going to scroll to, is this the end here? Okay. So, what's the point of me showing you this article? What's the point of all this? Think about what the conclusion that article is trying to make you draw. Is it that the World Economic Forum is a valid concern? No. Is it that the World Economic is a conspiracy theory? Not really either. What that article is trying to do is to basically create the illusion that they're just a bunch of harmless LARPers. That's it. They're just a bunch of cosplayers. It's a bunch of rich people sitting around playing dress-up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about their big plans for the future. They're harmless. They have no hand in affecting and influencing the future. They can't influence anything. Except for go look at the things they talk about and go look at what's happened in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? ESG's a thing. They talked about that.
Well, you even look at like some of the leaders of some country like Macron and Angela Merkel. They were like relatively little known people. They went to the Davos thing. Within like 6 months, they were the leaders of a country.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Not just that. Think of all the, for better or worse, whatever you think of the issue, think of all the climate agendas that governments are just operating in perfect lockstep about now. And also, bear in mind, if these were just LARPers, why do we have BlackRock and Blackstone Group and Google? Why is there this massive coalition forming around the same group? Sounds like a lot for just a conference event. They're partners, right? So just something to think about. However, there is one more quick short I want to show everybody. Hold on. Okay. This will be more of a live react.
Hope I will have the pleasure still to be invited for the meeting when we meet for the 20th Governance Summit. You will use the app like Uber, but not anymore to call some driver, but automatically guided car, a self-driven car, will come to your hotel or wherever you are and will bring you to the airport. No, Los Angeles is one of the cities with the heaviest traffic, who told me in 2030 Los Angeles will be private car driven free. And this will allow to transform highways into parks and other public spheres.
I mean, it sounds nice, but we know that's not what they want.
So, I'm just saying, even that little clip right there, that's what he's saying. And look at what road we're headed down. Self-driving cars, electric vehicles, right? And I'm not shitting on electric vehicles. Again, I'm like an environmentalist guy. I want cleaner tech. I want cleaner power. I want free energy. You know? I'm not one of these reactionaries who's like, no, we got to drill forever until we don't have any oil left. It's stupid. And we can do better. We got a sun. It's perfect. We can get all our shit from there.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of, you know, you got some media organizations that are painting them as toothless. You got others just claiming it's a conspiracy, but one way or another. I hope we provided enough information tonight, at least, to give you guys some stuff to think about, because this is the kind of shit that all those billionaires are meeting every year in Davos to discuss. This is the coalition that all those billionaires everybody hates on are, you know, involved with. Oh, wait. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, really? Interesting. Interestingly enough, Elon Musk's companies are not a part of this, which likely could be. I mean, there's, when you're the world's richest person, there's a way around it, obviously. But that was interesting. I digress. For our closing discussion tonight, and I want everybody in the chat to take part in this too. What do you think, Yeti? Do you think this could be a very real concern, or do you think there's a possibility? And I'll just give you something to chew on here. Do you think there's a possibility this could actually just be a massive psyop?
I mean, it very well could be, but it's hard to tell because, like you said, it does seem to be leading down all the ways they are saying. So,
yeah. And I asked that because I'm not sure myself. I haven't arrived at a conclusion, and that's what we're going to do here a lot at the Maple Files moving forward. We're going to have real discussions about stuff, especially if we're not sure about something, especially myself. I have a lot of issues that I can, pretty much any issue I can be moved on, really, if it's the right argument.
Like I said, I'm always open to learning new things, and with new facts and stuff like that, you do change opinions. That's how the world works. That's how people should.
Yeah, at one point in time, I thought Trudeau cared about us, and look how that turned out. So there's a couple things that gives me a little bit of pause. First and foremost, the fact that this is so in the open, the fact that they've got a YouTube channel where they're just laying out all of these future plans. The fact that you can buy these books on Amazon. We know Amazon is engaged in censorship before with certain stuff. YouTube absolutely engages in censorship of certain stuff. So, if this was some grand conspiracy, why is it so free for everybody to look at? Why do they have something as weird and creepy as you'll own nothing and you'll be happy? Why do they have a Dr. Evil turtle motherfucker up there who looks almost cartoonishly evil? Looks almost cartoonish like Bond villain shit up there saying, and if you notice in all his rhetoric, he's not saying we could have this. In the future, this could happen. This is possible. He's saying in the future, you will eat the bugs. You will live in the pod. You will drive in the robo-car. And if you posted anything on Twitter, it will drive into a lake. Okay, I got carried away, but I digress. So there's that. Another thing I wonder about, and this is just like me trying to kind of figure out the information for myself. Because again, I don't know. I don't know if it's not. There's certainly a lot of evidence to suggest that there are actual initiatives that are coming to fruition. So that is something I'm weighing as well. Also, this is a lot of work for a fucking psyop. I'll be the first one to admit this. This is a lot for just like a ruse. Mm-hmm. Cowboy Kitty, are we the NPCs that broke free? Yes, we are, and welcome home. This is the Canadian side of it. But yeah. Here's another. This is just something I think about. If I were faced, because again, all this World Economic Forum stuff, this just came to light very recently. It's been around for a while, of course, but it didn't become a matter of public discourse, like widely discussed public discourse and mentioned by very many like top conservative reactionary faction members until recently. Now, if I were at the top and I started to recognize that a growing number of people, way more people than I would ever be able to subdue with any amount of force. And that's a reality, guys. Don't ever let them demoralize you. Go look at like love the truckers, hate the truckers. Look at all they achieved with the limited numbers that they had. Okay? There are so many more of us than there are of them. And if we ever gain that solidarity, there's nothing they could do. We could bring the ruling class to their knees within days. We'll talk about that later. But alas, if I were one of those people at the top, I was sitting there thinking, wow, a lot of people are deeply not happy with this system. What better way to get them to cling to the status quo and cling to what they actually have than to introduce a shadowy, scary, creepy new form of life on the horizon? You own nothing, you like the bugs, you live in the pod, you got the robocar, the 15-minute cities. We didn't cover that tonight. Maybe we'll cover it later on. All the creepy, kind of proto-fascist, definitely dystopian leaning, dystopian curious, kind of tendencies of what they're putting in front of our eyeballs, because they're putting this in front of our eyeballs. They're not hiding it. They got their pants down. They're like, look at this. I don't know why I made that analogy. So like, what better way to get people to go from revolutionary fervor, which is we want change, we want something better, to reactionary fervor, where it's like, I don't like this direction, we need to stick to the status quo. What better way to do that than with some shadowy, scary sort of organization like this? And it's tricky because there's some reason for it to be an op. There's some things that don't really make a lot of sense, especially given that, a lot of the plans historically that government has had cooked up for us, they're well hidden. Look at what happens to people who uncover those secret plans, like Julian Assange or Edward Snowden. Well, they're treated very harshly. And that's because those plans are hidden. But these aren't. It's just out in the open for everybody to see.
That's the thing. They're not even trying to hide anything, so it is very odd to kind of work through it.
Yeah. And I mean, also, it could be a power move. It could be a power move. That they could just be telegraphing, this is what we're going to do. We're doing this, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So I don't know one way or another. Because again, there's a lot to unpack. But I'm just putting myself in someone else's shoes. If I were like a person who was benefiting greatly from a specific system, and I started to notice everybody else was unhappy with that system, and I didn't really care about them, I would probably try and find a way to change the narrative. I'm not saying, again, I don't know. And again, there's plenty of evidence to the contrary. But it is something I've kind of gone back and forth in my head about, where it's like, why are we seeing all this? I don't know. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I think it's going to come down to, we know someone wants control of something. So I think from there, you can figure out that it's best time to start learning how to fend for yourself, as I've said numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether they're doing this or not, something's going to go wrong. Yeah. Like, there's going to be consequences to this mucking about of stuff. Whether it's a joke or not, it's going to have real world consequences.
Yeah. And you know, that's a whole episode in and of itself. Because folks, I mean, I'm way behind Yeti on this. I gotta up my game real hard.
Did you see my portable solar generator I built?
I don't remember.
Hold on. I got pictures.
Go for it. I'm like,
I should really start putting pictures on my phone or on my computer so I can pull them up. That would involve learning how to use computers more.
Oh, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, so I got 2 panels that just transport on it, and then I can spread them out after. What I want to do eventually is build like some swing out arms. So it'll look kind of like the space station, where I'll just have like solar panels on both sides.
That's
I can
super
rotate.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. No, the point is, like, no matter how this pans out, I think the most important thing everybody's got to get in mind is, for any kind of large direct action like we've been talking about, for any kind of large direct action, you know, we're all going to have to be able to take care of one another and not have our reliance on the state or on corporations, especially with the understanding that they are not only working together now, but they have plans, whether projected or not projected, to work much more closely in the future. If anybody wants a better world than the one we're stuck in right fucking now, I would highly suggest
start planning.
Start planning for something. You know, there is a reason growing up that all the mainstream media painted like preppers or whatever. Do you remember that when they they painted them as like Looney Tune tinfoil people? I feel like it's because they don't want people being self-sustainable. They want people that they can take stuff away from. Because listen, you know, we don't know what level of 1984 this is going to end up being, but, you know, I know people who had their bank accounts frozen. So that's one thing right off the bat. If your bank account's frozen, how are you going to eat? Well, if you have a garden, you can at least feed yourself.
Yep.
And, you know, I know...
Make yourself ungovernable.
Exactly.
What that means is make sure you can take care of every need you need. So there's actually a really good guy named called Bush Radical on YouTube who does cabin builds and stuff. But he always says he's like a place to sleep, place to cook food, and a place to shower.
Yep. And that's especially scary up here in Canada because, we got winters, and winters are, they're a little taxing. I'm one of the weirdos that kind of just walks around in a t-shirt. I'm one of those guys, so I like
so you're like me.
Yeah.
People used to laugh at me because I'd have sandals in -40.
Yeah, exactly. I was made fun of as a kid for it too, because I was jogging in a tank top and shorts, and everybody was like, "What the hell are you doing? You're gonna die." I remember one time my to this day I don't even know. It must just be like, I don't know, the heritage. I don't know how else we pulled this off. My sister and I, growing up, one Christmas got really drunk on vodka, and we literally passed out in the snow. We just slept in a snowbank. We were sleeping in a snowbank, and we were fine. My dad found us like hours later. He woke us up. He's like, "Get in. How are you alive?
Get in the house."
We were just fine. We were fine. The snow was melted around us and shit. We were just like, okay, well,
get back in the house before I kill you. Wait, what? Okay.
Yeah. What's this kid doing out here? Exactly. All right. Well, anyway, that was Canada in the World Economic Forum. Everybody, I hope that was informative, not just for getting a bit more discussion and visibility, hopefully from more of an analytical perspective on the World Economic Forum itself, but also Canada's involvement, because this is a Canada central show. There's definitely a lot of things to think about, not just in terms of the neoliberals, because we know they're always gonna protect capital. And if there's anything you need to know, it's that liberals will always side with fascists against revolutionaries. Mm-hmm. Every single historical example of this has proven this to be true.
Always have, always will.
There's a reason why scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds is popular. The conservatives, it's just in the name. Like, of course. They're gonna oppose any kind of revolutionary change, because that's why they're conservatives. They think everything's fine.
Yeah.
Even if everybody's saying it's not fine, they have a vested interest in it being fine, because it's fine for them. That's how that brain works. So, I digress. We are reaching the end of this show. Any final words, Yeti?
No, I think for the most part, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. This has been pretty fun going about this little journey, and like I said, we'll be doing more stuff as we go, and I'll be able to show off some more sustainability once I'm actually out on the East Coast and can build some stuff. So,
for sure. I just like to make a final disclaimer, guys. Everything covered in this episode, if you're curious, go look it up. Fact check us. This video is going to stay on YouTube and on Kick and on other platforms. If we got something wrong, leave a comment. But I tried my best to research as best as I could before barreling into this one. And I feel like we did a pretty good job. But again, always hold us accountable.
Yeah, you do a great amount of research. I'm slacking on that. I really got to get my ass in gear.
That's fine. Well, it's episode 4. We haven't gotten our groove yet. It'll come. Believe me. Anyway, guys, thank you guys, everybody, so much for tuning in. Not just here, but on Twitter, on Kick, on everywhere. I'm seeing all the different. Oh, okay. That's cool. You hover over the eyes and it gives you a whole list. Okay. Thank you to everybody on Twitter, Facebook, my YouTube channel, and Indie News Network, both on Twitch and INN. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. We'll see y'all next Monday. Have a beautiful week, everybody.